For your ears only for the week of September 22nd, I'm David Alpern.
I'm Catherine Herzog.
When it comes to the health care law, the debate in the House has been settled. I think our position is very clear. The law is a train wreck, and it's going to raise costs, it's destroying American jobs, and it must go. We'll deliver a big victory in the House tomorrow, then this fight will move over to the Senate, where it belongs. I expect my Senate colleagues to be up for the battle.
No one fought harder against it than I did, but to somehow think we are going to defund it is simply not going to happen at this time, and it will, in my opinion, as it did before, harm the American people's view of the Republican Party.
House Speaker John Boehner last week delivered on a promise to his Tea Party members to pass a so-called continuing resolution that would keep funding government operations except for Obamacare, just as more of the president's signature health insurance reform kicks in next month. Democrats were publicly outraged and privately pleased, to quote Republican Senate stalwart John McCain, GOP strategist Karl Rove, and other conservative icons who call the idea dumb and self-defeating for their party if it ends up in a government shutdown in just about a week.
Down the track is a potentially more devastating GOP threat to hold hostage the nation's debt ceiling and thus its global credit rating to even greater cuts in federal spending. Meanwhile, the massacre at Washington's Navy Yard brought the painful issue of gun safety back to the fore. Immigration activists stepped up their public pressure for reform, and President Obama lost his reported personal favorite to head the Federal Reserve, as former Treasury Secretary and Harvard head Larry Summers was forced from the running. To consider these and other issues of the week for your ears only, we're joined again by veteran TV commentator Eleanor Clift, also a contributor at NewsweekDailyBeast.com. Welcome back to the program.
Glad to be with you.
Tea Party Republicans thought they could blame the president for a government shutdown if he did not sign their bill to continue all funding except for Obamacare. But it looks like the Democratic Senate will act first, put back that funding, and make the Republican House responsible for blocking continued government spending. Are Democrats secretly hoping for that to happen, at least briefly, to smear the GOP's image?
Well, I think Democrats are enjoying the civil war that's going on in the Republican Party. There's great divisions over whether it's a smart move to try to shut down the government. And yet there's a segment of the party that seems hell-bent on doing it, whatever the political cost. I don't think Democrats really want to see the government shut down because the impact on the still fragile recovery and the economy could be significant. And if they do it over the debt ceiling, that could really affect, as the president puts it, the full faith and credit of the United States. And so I think politically, if the Republicans do proceed on this very dangerous path, I think it will hurt them politically, but it will hurt everybody. It hurts the country, the economy. So I don't think it's something that Democrats are wishing for.
What operations actually get halted, and could pay for Congress be one of them?
I guess theoretically, but that would be way down on the list of anything anybody cares about. But, student loan applications, everything would get delayed, stopped. And I think, though, the people think that if there is a shutdown, it wouldn't last long, that it would be basically symbolic. And I have a piece on the Daily Beast where I quote a Republican, Brad Blakeman, who teaches at Georgetown but served in the George W. Bush White House. And he said, he understands that they want to make a symbolic point. He said, but you have to fight to live another day. And they should be playing chess. Instead, they're playing Russian roulette. So I think it's a very destructive path. And because it's so destructive, in Washington, everyone figures, well, at the last minute, they'll avert the collision. But you can't count on that with this crowd. It's a very different group of politicians.
The president has said he won't compromise on funding Obamacare, but given the administrative problems that have already cropped up, is there a possible deal involving only delays on other aspects of the program?
The delays that have been put in effect basically are have to do with rule writing and regulations, and normally they would not get a whole lot of attention. What the Republicans would like to see is the delay in people signing up on the exchanges. And the exchanges are open for business October 1, and the enrollment will really begin on January 1st. So you have a period of time there for people to decide. if that were held up, that would really gut the law. So I really don't see the administration agreeing to any significant delays.
Is there a parallel between Tea Party pressure on Boehner from the right and signs the Democratic left was gearing up for a fight against Larry Summers to head the Fed? His pullout caused a rally on Wall Street. Did the White House have a role in his retreat from the race?
Larry Summers was basically forced out when 3 members of the banking committee, Democrats, said that they would not support him. And Elizabeth Warren, who he had tussled with in the past, senator from Massachusetts, she's also on the banking committee. She's no fan of Summers, and while she didn't speak out, that would have been another negative vote. So he couldn't have gotten out of committee in the Senate. So it was a losing battle. And presumably, he recognized the reality. He can count. But if he didn't, I'm sure the White House would have given him a nudge. He couldn't win, and everybody recognized that.
What are the odds now that Vice Chair Janet Yellen becomes the first female Fed head? And what would it mean for Fed policy, especially its $85 billion in monthly stimulus spending?
She's very popular. I think 152 sort of noted economists that sent a letter to the president saying they supported her. She's got support on Capitol Hill, and the women's groups love her because they see it as an historic appointment. And she, much more than Summers, has been very supportive of the so-called quantitative easing, pumping money into the economy. And so I don't see her as deviating much from the path that Bernanke has set. And she, like Bernanke, was a student of the Depression, and she doesn't seem to be that concerned about curbing inflation, which we haven't seen for some time. And she seems much more concerned about taking us on a monetary policy that could help with job creation. So next to Bernanke continuing in the job, she's the next best thing in the view of economists who have supported what Bernanke has done.
Do you see any impact from last week's Navy Yard massacre on gun safety or mental health action by Congress or the administration beyond reform within the military?
It was really notable that the president addressed the tragedy only briefly and then basically went back to what he was doing, although he will attend the memorial service Sunday here in Washington. There's no hope for reviving the background checks bill that failed quite dramatically earlier this year. But there is some movement having to do with mental health aspects. The member of Congress who worked for Gabby Giffords and was injured in that shooting has introduced a bill. And on the Senate side, you have Senator Blunt of Missouri, a Republican, who's also been pushing some mental health provisions. So conceivably, they could come together on something like that, although they don't want to spend any money. So I don't know if good intentions count if people aren't willing to put a significant amount of money behind it.
Veteran TV commentator Eleanor Clift is also a contributor at NewsweekDailyBeast.com.
Quote from the news, head spinning. That's how a senior American diplomat described the Tehran charm offensive under new President Hassan Rouhani, including Rosh Hashanah greetings to Jews that suggest hope for revived negotiation on Iran's nuclear program in response to a letter from President Obama.
Next, more on security flaws exposed by the Navy Yard massacre. For your ears only.